Joel Wingo, brother, it has been way too long.
Yes,
A long time coming and waiting. And I myself, specifically, friend, honestly, have been really excited and waiting for this one. And I know there's going to have to be a part 2. I just know there's so much I want to dive in with you specifically. We go back, way back now. And I can say that, I mean, I'm turning 39 in a couple of months, and that's just wild. And I become more aware in that when the last time that I feel like we got to we were hanging out consistently. I'm this little 15, 16-year-old punk kid, right? Who's trying to figure out who Jesus is, who life is, and moving to a new town, Okie from Muskogee and all this stuff. So first of all, thank you, man. Thank you for being here.
Hey, it's an honor, privilege. Glad to be here.
Yeah, I love it. So, all right, guys. So the Place with TM podcast listeners, this is episode 2. Look at that. We got more than one. That means we're serious now. We're off and we're rocking and we're rolling on this thing. Tell me a little bit kind of about what you're doing right now. You are a growth coach. You're a marriage and family therapist. You know, you're a husband. You're a dad, right? You've got many hats. You've got many titles. You've got many things. And the last time, again, I was knowing and being around Joe Wingo, he was wildly funny, charismatic youth pastor. Tell us what you're doing now and kind of describe that transition from full-time ministry and into what you're doing now and the similarities and the differences that you've found.
Sure. So when I knew you, I was in my early 20s. You were a teenager, and I had just moved to Muskogee, Oklahoma, and took a youth pastor position at an Assemblies of God church. Fresh out of college, I was just excited to get a paycheck, man. I was just like, I was ready to charge the gates of hell with a squirt gun, win the loss at any cost. And that's kind of that was my mentality, my focus. And then, we had a pretty good run, good youth group. I don't know. What would you say? I don't know, 60, 75, maybe 100 kids in that youth group.
Guys, in a very tight room, maybe the size of my bedroom I'm in right now.
Yeah,
it was wild, but it was incredible. It was all we needed.
Yeah, it was definitely a life-changing season for me as well, being able to be in charge of something. But I'll never forget, this is a memory that just came up, and I'll never forget creating the character Kurt Ferguson.
I think about that at least every other month. I really do.
Taylor was my camera guy. We went on all kinds of stuff. All it was video announcements, right? That's all it was just announcing what was coming up.
It was what we looked forward to every week. It really was. It was so great.
Yeah. So anyway, so that's when I ran into Taylor Morgan right here. And I could tell, I'm going to admonish you here just because I need to.
No.
Yeah. So I could tell even then that the hand of God was on your life, even as you were developing as a young man, trying to figure out things. I was a little further ahead.
I had probably no idea what that sentence even meant.
Right. But you had, had a passion, and that was what I read from you off of your heart, is you had a passion, you loved Jesus, and you were going after it. And so that was what kind of attracted that spiritual side of relational friendship that we had. So I'm learning how to be a pastor, youth pastor, and also how to be a friend and in that dynamic role. So that's kind of, you helped me develop. And that's a beautiful thing, is like learning the season, learning the people in your life. I tell people that, you are in people's lives and people are in your lives for reasons and seasons. And
man, that's good.
God places us in people's lives, and sometimes we don't understand why or even how the heck we got there. It is what it is. And you need to recognize, like, okay, well, how can I be refreshing in conversation? How can I be inspiring? How can I be also accountable to people in the season that I'm in with that relationship? And so that's what we did. So I'll fast forward. Well, the question was, what am I doing currently? Right.
Yeah. So I started off how that transition, because I don't know about you, with what I'm doing now in my life and the transitions that me and Mallory take, we both went to the same Bible college, not in the same years. God rest its soul. CBC. It was now Evangel. Yeah,
that was my college too.
It almost felt like when we were made transitions and we felt a calling away from full-time platform ministry, it was so ingrained within me that it almost felt like a sin. I almost felt like I was abandoning the call of God because why aren't you a youth pastor? Why aren't you a worship pastor? So I kind of wanted to hear your transition on that. And if you had also any struggles, or do you even feel some of those things now?
Yeah, it's a great question. It goes back to even, I have to be careful because I am a trained psychotherapist, so I take things and I'll go deeper with them. But it goes back to even childhood, whether you're listening to secular music versus Christian music, right? It's like if you listen to a country song, you feel like you're going to hell. That's the way I felt like when I was a kid. So I had to either be all in with Christian music or else I was on the wrong side. And so it goes into that mentality as being, my daddy was a Assemblies of God, old fashioned Assembly of God preacher, still is. I preached heaven hot, eternity long, and I love that. I love that mentality about it. But there was a sense of condemnation that came along with that, and that belief of that God was ready to beat you over the head if you mess up or got out of line in any way, shape, fashion, or form. And so I did grow up with a sense of just being afraid of not doing the right thing. And so, youth ministry. So I felt called in the ministry at a young age, and all the way even in high school, I started a Youth Alive Bible Club from there and prayed. I was a designated prayer guy for my baseball team. And so even all the way through that, I felt the calling of God, got into college, joined a college group called Chi Alpha Campus Ministry. It's all over the nation. Got involved in that. And so from there, I left Northeastern State University in Tahlequah, Oklahoma. That was the college I went to. And I went to Central Bible College, your alma mater as well. And so once that happened in that transition, I was being trained to be a pastor. And that's my desire, my goal is what I wanted to do. And through that whole youth pastoring and vocational ministry, I felt like I got to be really good at it. And that's what I was doing. However, as time goes on, I learned more of how to live in the what we call the secular world, right? And how to be not necessarily see this is what I'm talking about. We identify secular world as like sin, it's bad, don't touch it, But what I'm saying when I say secular world is outside of the church. And so I learned by being a bivocational minister, meaning I worked outside of the church to support my family. I learned that there was more ministry that could happen, and even I would even say sometimes even more powerful ministry could happen outside of the steeple four-wall church.
Wow.
And I began to understand that. And as I began to understand that, I felt like it really made me even more in love with going to church, because I knew when I was going to church, again, let me say this, church is not a building. It's the people of God. We are the church. We are the body of Christ. But going to a fellowship, right, with other believers, it gave me an excitement and a passion, because I knew that that was my one place that I felt safe, that I could go to, and that I could feel recharged, and that I could also serve in. But when I was day to day working in different things that I've done, and we can talk about that later if we want to, but I learned how to be intentional, very intentional on my conversations and the way I viewed people. And that's where God really put that love inside of my heart for people. And so, so as I'm looking at that, I think it was just one day I just realized, I don't have to be a Bible or a vocational minister to be called in the ministry. I'd go as far as to say everyone is called at some level to go in the world and preach the gospel, which we call ministry today. It doesn't matter if you're a farmer or if you're an electrician or if you, or a preacher. We still have, I believe, an obligation to share the gospel of Jesus Christ with people in the marketplace, anywhere that we're at, a park or in a store, anywhere. And that doesn't have to be weird. I used to think it was like a weird thing, like, oh, I got to talk to somebody about Jesus. No, the natural flows out of your mouth. So as I'm looking today, many years have gone by, and as I have become, it's just titles, but it's really, there's a lot of work goes into it. But as my journey to become a psychotherapist, I believe that the therapy room can be a place of, I say it's a magical place, but it's really, it's a place where we just have to, the client has to force themselves to sit on a couch and talk about their feelings. And that's something a lot of people don't want to do, right? And usually by the time I get to a couple, they're already either filing for divorce or they're contemplating divorce, or something's wrong inside of that individual or their marriage. And so I feel like I'm still doing ministry. I'm still doing ministry. It's just not inside a church house.
Yeah, that's it's so funny, the context of secular versus, again, that which is we deem holy. I think it took a while for me, I think even late into my 20s, to kind of undoctrinate myself from this idea of what is ministry. It's what it's supposed to look like if there's not a mic in my hand, if there's not a keyboard in front of me, right? If there's not some sort of denomination attached to it. It almost felt meaningless, purposeless to me at times. I got really lost in this emotional, I didn't know who I was. Because Joel, you understand this. We attach our identity to what we do. So we say who we are is our titles. I am, growth coach, therapist. I am, who am I? Well, I am what I do. So I think there can be some healthy things in that, but I also believe that obviously there can be some very healthy attachments. So when I lose the job, when life happens outside of me externally that I have zero control over, or it goes in a way that we didn't see ourselves planning in walking with God. And I learned this really quickly, that we can have our plans and we think that we get out of college, just here it's go. It's going to be smooth sailing. There's a lot of things that college either didn't or couldn't teach us. And that was some of the things that were behind the curtains in church ministry, and a lot of things that I thought I would never see, conversations that I thought I would never have to have, ways that I was treated, that, I've met nicer atheists. So just a lot of wild stuff that doesn't prep you for that. When you are when you're working with what you're doing right now, you're a coach, you're a therapist. How has faith played a role in the forming of your identity? And how, Joel, do you make that at the end of the day, you can find your centeredness with, no matter how bad work has went, with, like, I just got to look at your schedule a while ago, and I think like sweat went down my face, and it's not even my schedule. I'm just like, gosh, I thought I was busy. Yeah. How do you maintain identity and don't let the waves of your job and the ups and downs tell you who Joel is?
Sure. That's a great question. And I have wrestled that most of my life.
I think we all have and are. Yeah.
Like, for me, it is my, it's my desire, and my true north is really my desire, my passion to please the Lord, and not to please the Lord, kind of alluding back to what I was saying earlier, not to please the Lord to miss hell, because I don't want to go to hell. No, we don't want to go to hell, obviously, but not to please the Lord just because we don't want to go to hell, but to please the Lord because He is our Father.
Yeah.
Because we don't want to, or I don't want to let Him down. I want Him to be proud of me, and I want Him to delight in me. And so that has really been, I guess I would say, my driving force for most, if not all of my life, is really I really have just a deep, deep desire to please the Lord. And that does not mean, the caveat to that, does not mean that I'm perfect. If my wife was over here, she'd be saying, amen. It doesn't mean that I'm perfect by any means. I have many, many flaws. And we could spend the rest of the hour just talking about my flaws. But at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, I love what you were saying. I'm not a therapist. I'm a child of God that happens to do therapy.
Good. Yeah.
So disassociating your work or what you do with why you do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's a very, very big piece, especially for people that do what I do, is being able to understand that the person of the therapist, or the person of whoever that is, in disassociating why or what it is you're doing. But at the end of the day, like I was saying, I just want it to be, like the song says, well with my soul.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know that I am a good husband. I want to know that I'm a good father, and I want to know that I'm a good son.
Mm-hmm.
Those are characteristics that are deep rooted inside of me that I can't undo. Like, I mean, nor would I want to, right? But I mean, it's built inside of me.
Yeah.
Question would be like, how did that happen? How did that get built in me? I think it goes back to childhood raising, and I think I got to give props to my mom and my dad. They raised me right.
Yeah.
They weren't perfect. They didn't raise me if anything, it's taught me how not to be so trusting with my kids because of the way, like, some things. I mean, I wasn't a bad kid growing up, but I mean, they were more hands off, letting me be who I was, doing my thing. But I think I managed. I think I was a pretty good kid. But yeah, props to my mom and dad just for empowering me, speaking life over me, and helping me just to grow into the young man. Now, I guess I could be an old man. It depends on how you look at it to today. But yeah, that's how I do it. That's how I do it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I love it. Again, it's because I think there's always this pressure. And again, you said, I loved your candidness on that, right? Like, you immediately said, I think I feel I'm still wrestling with this. I think there's always going to be a tension that we are going to have to manage for those of us who have multiple titles, right? Multiple places of a healthy pressure, I would say, that you are having to perform. You're having to perform as therapist, right? You're having to perform as a coach, and maybe not the word perform as much as when it comes to the family, but produce, like you said, I'm wanting to be a good myself, as including a good husband. I'm wanting to be a good dad. I'm wanting to be a good son in the kingdom. I think that's a tension that we're always going to have to manage, specifically in a culture that is a grind centric culture. You always hear this being talked about. You got to get your grind on, you got to work in a culture, Joel, that we applaud people who will work 23 hours a day. You get an hour of sleep and it's like, oh, he's a hard worker. Okay. Well, yeah. The guy may be about to be on his deathbed, though, if he continues that
quick
right
to burnout
for a long. So how does the coach how do you coach yourself? What are the parameters you set in place for you? Again, going back into that a part of that identity, that you don't lose yourself in the efforts of trying to help everybody else, because everyone else is coming to you for help. Where are you able to go to find that as well?
So I'll use an analogy that Dr. Tim Elmore used. He was a professor, and he's also, I think he's out there. He's got books and stuff. But Tim Elmore was a professor in the one of the grad schools that I went to in a previous degree for pastoral counseling and church planting, organizational development. So he actually said, he called it the starving baker. I think you probably Google it, but it's called the starving baker, and it's where the baker is highly successful. I've kind of modified it over the years, but he's highly successful. He's got a spot on a TV show where he won. He's got the best, baked goods, this side of the hemisphere, and everybody's ordering online orders, and people are out the door, and he's doing this great job, and he's making hand over fist money, success. In the world's eyes, it's happening, man. It's success. But the problem is he doesn't set the pan down to feed himself. And what that is burnout. So if you're doing all this and you're feeding everybody around you, but you don't set the pan down to eat what you've obviously, have worked so hard to create, you'll starve. And so that analogy has been with me for many, many years. And so I would say the antidote to that would be for number one, one of the things that we have is in therapy is we have supervisors. So supervision, and it's not a supervisor like you would think, but it's a supervisor. I actually have to pay the person to supervise me, but it's a supervisor to where they're actually asking me questions for myself, making sure I'm good, even in the situation in the midst of doing counseling with someone. And so having a supervisor there, and I'll tell you this, just personally, there's, I don't know how many fire pits, times around fire pits that I've had. It's something that I do to sit around and just watch a fire dance. And that's relaxing to
Me
me.
and you are in the same in that. I could do that. And we're in that perfect season right now. I don't know how the weather is in Oklahoma, but it is time
I've
to
got
be
2 ricks
guys.
of wood, 2 ricks of wood waiting here. Yeah,
get around, listen to this man. Get yourself around a fire. You don't understand the peace and the clarity it will bring you. Yeah. Continue. It's incredible.
Yeah. So just getting around that, and I love this season. We're in the fall season where we're going into winter months, where it's a crisp feeling, and you're just maybe in just a jacket, and you got a nice fire around you, and you're just kind of looking at the stars, in the and this, you could do this in the backyard, I mean, as long as you're in fire ordinance, right? So, I mean, don't go burn something down. But, I do this in the backyard, sit around, and sometimes I'll have friends, and we're just, we're sitting there, having a drink and talking about life, good conversations. Kids around, even they're playing, whatever. But those are moments for me, I guess, that would bleed over into just family time, having the family around me. I'm a family man. I'm in Stillwater, Oklahoma because of family. I had opportunities to go elsewhere before we moved here, and I really felt if ever the Lord spoke to me, it wasn't a verbal voice saying, "Hey, Joel, you're going to go back to Oklahoma." It was just that nudge and confirmation from people. And so 2016, we packed up a big U-Haul truck. Day before, I bought a big Ford Expedition and traded in the other vehicle, and we came home, or we came to Stillwater out of Hot Springs, Arkansas. That's where we were at. And so we spent many years there working with a para-ministry called Compact Family Services with kids from hard places. And so that's another whole conversation. But so being here is just that's what started my journey of going into the mental health world, trying to help people outside the steeple church. And when I say that too, I want you to understand that just because you're doing clinical work doesn't mean you're not a Christian. Again, going back to what you do, versus who you are, doing versus being. I will allow the word of God to speak through me if it's appropriate at any time, even in a clinical setting. And if you're a Christian and you're needing counseling, I would highly recommend seeking out a therapist that is a Christian. And a lot of times, I will tell you this too, a lot of times Christian therapists don't have the title Christian over their title. If you're looking for the title, for me, it's not a Christian therapist. I'm a marriage and family therapist who happens to be a Christian.
Yeah.
That's right. And so I don't make any bones about that. I'll let them know up front.
Okay.
That's what I do. And so, yeah. So you gotta pull the reins on me, man. I'll just keep talking. I'm also a preacher.
This is great.
So,
yeah.
Yeah.
What do you find in your conversations with marriages, with couples, with people who are coming to you? Let's say specifically in the form of the connection of relationships and how we are as a species and humanity trying to work well with one another. Because I can, at times in my life, I'm very introverted and extroverted. I can be needing people time and having people around me and be just as satisfied where on a Friday night, I need me and just that fireside we were talking about. And I'm as equally as happy. What's the common thread and advice and wisdom and insight and practical help that you're giving to people when it comes to, is there a thread, a common frustration, a common roadblock that you're finding that we just got out of this political season? I say just got out of it, maybe just started it. A lot of debates. People are leaving people if they voted on one side. I mean, I'm seeing long-term friendships being destroyed over the person you voted for, the party you voted for. And I'm just like, how did we get here, Joel? Like, what's the common thread? What's the common roadblock that you're finding that we can better stay connected with people while still having differences of opinions on certain topics?
Yeah, I think it's authentic communication.
Okay.
Being able to give heartfelt answers without having hesitation of feeling like you can't be yourself around that person. And the dynamic can be, usually for me, usually it's a husband and a wife that I'm dealing with. But there's many that I do individually. But as far as authentic communication goes, is a lot of people don't know how they feel. They walk around, and a lot of times I'm finding that in a lot of areas when I start going deeper, that they're just numb. They're like, I never thought about that. And so they're walking around, and these are professed Christians or some non-Christians, but it's just like, I don't know, they're more finding their identity, like we're going back to, in what they do instead of who they are doing versus being. And then when they come home, and the wife or the husband, whichever one, however they come back home, and they don't know how to communicate because they feel like there's some jadedness or history, or it just kind of on top of one another, to the point to where it's like, I can't really be authentic. And so once you peel the onion back or cut it thinner and really get down to the person, it goes back really to a trauma or something that was hurt. They were hurt at a specific time. And so now we live in a day and time where we just, we throw titles on it, PTSD or ADHD or, just all these different titles.
Yeah.
Well, why? What is the root cause of it? And that's kind of where we just try to slice it thinner and thinner, or I try to slice it thinner and thinner and try to realize, like, what is it that is causing you the hatred or the vision or whatever that is. And you're right, Taylor. We live right now in a highly sensitive, highly divided, and this isn't new. I mean, we've lived in this now for the past decade. And so this is becoming a norm. And I'll tell you, it's sad, but the psychotherapy world is doing really well as far as business is concerned, because there's a lot of people that are needing help.
Right. Yeah.
Wait lists are common. You can't just call up a therapist. Most of the time, you can't just call up a therapist and say, "Hey, can I come in next week?" It's usually, we'll you're on a wait list, and there may be 3 pages.
Hey, you read the room. You see the nation. We're booked out. We're booked out for a bit.
Yeah. So it's very critical now. I think we're really at a critical point in our nation as far as the family and the zip codes and the cul-de-sacs and the communities and the neighborhoods. A lot of people are emotionally maxed out, and that's why marriages are under attack, and we're seeing severely high divorce rates now. We're seeing a lot of the foster care system is the influx of the foster care system is growing beyond sustainable capacity, and so it's a crisis. And this isn't anything new, but it's getting worse. And this would be a good plug for me to talk about. I'm looking at my watch, just making sure that for me to talk about this is the church. She is already ready and equipped. The body is all over. The church body is all over our nation, and through fellowships and organizations, and there's financial resources. There's means there. The church is already a vehicle in which they can step in and help this such crisis that we're talking about with foster care. And this is a shameless plug for Compact Family Services. There is a situation and to where you've got something like that going on. Compact Family Services is definitely a place to. It's the Assemblies of God National Children's Home is what that is, and it's based out of Hot Springs, Arkansas. And my wife and I served there for 6 years, 6 plus. And that is honestly where my eyes were opened to some of these crisis needs with kids from hard places and that can't speak for themselves. And it was there that I met a marriage and family therapist that worked alongside of me as a case manager and a health parent, a director for transitional living, aged out foster kids. I met this man that was a marriage and family therapist, and I watched him work with young kids, and I watched him be able to really transform just through day in and day out. I didn't know really what it was. I just thought, man, that is powerful. And so that's what intrigued me to become a marriage and family therapist. Yeah. So,
well, I mean, What stuck out to me, I mean, a lot of things on that one. Man, I feel like I can resonate so much with the idea and the thought where you said that you are coming in contact with people on a day-to-day basis who are unaware of what they're feeling, and they don't know how to vocalize it. We don't know how to talk about it. And I've had these conversations with my wife, and it's kind of one of those awakening moments to where I realized we as a society have literally been graded and measured the moment we enter into this world. This pressure just gets slapped on us, and it's like pre-kindergarten, and right? And we're handing out these grades all the way to elementary and then middle school and then high school, and we're being graded. And then you go into college and you've got to do it this way, and pressure. And, you don't want to flunk and all this stuff. And yeah, I don't think we consciously understand what it's doing to our psyche, that it's hard to let down from the performance. It's hard to take off the proverbial tie I get home. And I think it's finding it hard, like you said, to find that authentic and healthy communication. Because at the end of the day, for some of us, a lot of us, we don't even want to talk anymore. I just want to get home and decompress for hours on end. I don't care if it's playing a video game, and sometimes we can hide our life away in doing that, or for other people, we're it can get really dark, and we're turning to drugs, or to addictions, to pornography, to gambling, to whatever the escape is. And I'm sure you've ran into all sorts of these issues, these conflicts that are causing a divide in America, because it's causing a divide in the family life, in the homes. Joel, what would you say to our listeners? What are some practical steps, as a believer or as a non-believer, things that people could take home right now today to find healthy ways to have authentic communication? Because I think one of the keys to having authentic communication is also being a caring listener. We love to want to get our point across. Mm-hmm. We don't necessarily too much have the energy or the patience to want to listen to the opposing viewpoint, again, right, who may differ to me, because if you say anything that steps on my toes, everyone's offended today, Joel. Right. How do we have, which I believe, when we say in this podcast, I believe conversation changes the world, because conversation changes us. But for us to have authentic communication, I've got to be able to hear vantage points that are different than mine, even if it steps on my toes. How do we take that shift into culture? What are the practical steps, Joel, that we can take home in our family, in our marriages, and for our kids?
So this is another shameless plug. But like I said, I wear many hats. I want to talk about this, because if one of our listeners is out there, whoever is out there that's listening to this, and you are finding yourself in a place where you're like, I need some help. I don't know what, whether it's depression, whether it's addictions of any kind, or whether it's marriage problems, or whether you're just low self-esteem, or you don't know what the heck to do, the next situation, financial, whatever. There is a place that you can go. It's an online space. It's called sharethstruggle.org. Okay. And Share the Struggle is I'm a life coach or a growth coach with Share the Struggle. And that is a place to where you can go. It's a monthly subscription. You can cancel anytime, but you can get anywhere up to 25 minutes a week with a growth coach, plus resources from all kinds of professional resources that's there for 25 minutes a week with a growth coach, up to 50 minutes a week, depending on what price tier you would want. And I'll tell you, it's a lot cheaper than going to a therapist. But I'm telling you right now, it's not therapy, it's coaching. And there is a difference. But I'll tell you, if there's a step in between that, this would be the place to do it. It'd be sharethstruggle.org. And so that's one step. So finding someone that will listen, and someone that will care and empathize with you, and someone also that will hold you accountable. We need people in our lives. It's the environment. Yeah. And in order to change the way you do, what is that? The definition of insanity, right? Is to expect something different, but to do the same thing over and over. That's insanity. And so if you want to change, then you have to add different ingredients. You have to add different things into your daily life. If you want to learn something, or want to be better at something, then that means you got to crack open a book, or listen to a podcast, or get around people that are of that nature, of that character. And so that's something that's real important. You got to watch your environment. And if you're finding yourself being more like the people that's around you, then maybe it's time that you detach yourself from some of those people and find some other people group. Another thing is like I said, I'm a shameless, passionate follower of Jesus Christ. I believe this till the day I die and after. Prayer changes things. Prayer. You can't have enough prayer in your life. And I'll tell you, if you feel like your prayers, I've been there, then your prayers don't reach any higher than the ceiling. And you're like, God, where are you? I don't understand this. I don't feel you. Listen, God hears you. He'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. These are the things, watch out now, I'm pulling this up. These are the things that the Bible says. And if we're Christians and we believe what the Bible says, then we need to do what the Bible says to do, right?
Yeah.
So there's a disconnect. So we look at this and we're like, okay, we believe it, but I don't know if I can do it. So there's a difference between believing it and then doing it. The practicality of doing it is that you take baby steps. You digest it, your spirit man and the flesh man. And which one that you're going to feed the most is the one that's going to grow the most. And when you begin to take steps of praying and believing, if you're reading the word and then pray the word, the Bible says, taste and see that the Lord is good.
Yes.
How will you know that the Lord is good unless you taste and see? And so I challenge you, for anyone that's out there and you're like, man, I really, Joel, I really wish that it could be that easy. I wish that, but you don't understand my circumstance, man. You don't understand where I'm coming from or what's happened to me. Look, man, I don't have to understand what happened to you or where you're coming from, because Jesus does. And if Jesus understands, then you just got to go and you got to open the door to it and say, God, if you're real, give him the challenge. Say, if you're real, then show me you're real. And I promise you, God will show you in one form or another. He will show you. And that's just the way it works. And I don't understand why bad things happen, to good people, other than the fact that we live in a fallen world. And sometimes we don't get the right cards dealt to us. And we have to move forward with that no matter what.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's everything. We talk about it so much on this side and on this platform, is taking back I had put out a video one time talking about taking back the pen of your life, that you were the author of your story, that, there, just like any book, there may be characters that come into your life that try to change the plot, the narrative of the book that's being written for your life. And one of the most exhilarating things truly is when you begin to understand that as a son or a daughter, specifically in the kingdom of God, that God gives you the authority and the right to rewrite your story. This is a redemptive story. It's funny though that, we can both meet on this, and all of us nerds that what I'm about to say are about to applaud and cheer with great joy. Watching The Lord of the Rings, right? For those of you guys who just said what The Lord of the Rings is, you can turn this podcast off immediately. Go buy yourself the extended edition of The Lord of the Rings, turn it on, and come back and thank me later and subscribe to my podcast. It's funny how, Joel, we love a good plot. We love a good story. We love the ups and downs and going through the dark tunnels and meeting spiders in a movie. But when we ourselves as the main character, right, in our lives, go through the ups and downs, and like you said, bad things happen to good people. Well, let's throw that plot out. No, now hold on. I want sunshine. I want rainbows. I want glitter. I want sparkles. I want it now. I want it every day. But Joel, we know this. We don't grow as a society, as individuals, without. Yes, we've heard the old saying, "No pain, no gain." We don't grow. We don't come into a greater sense of humility. I have found, unless life sometimes has to come to humble us, to teach us. And I'm hoping that we're taking a shift and taking a turn in culture and protecting free speech. And that means hearing speech and seeing things that you may not necessarily agree with, but some that that they're right and that they come to humble you. And so I totally agree. Real quick, last couple of minutes, I've got to talk about it. Hopefully we can get this in. I'm looking back over, I'm looking at your left, probably your right shoulder, and I'm seeing, and you guys are seeing this beautiful imagery of this rhino. I feel there's got to be a little bit. No one has a massive rhino painting on their wall for no reason, Joel.
Yeah.
In about 2-3 minutes, explain. There's got to be something to that.
Several years ago, I'm talking like maybe 15 years ago or so, I read a book by Erwin McManus called The Barbarian Way.
Come on. Oh, yeah.
And that book, Erwin described he was talking about vision and casting vision and faith. And he described when you have a group of rhinos together, there's a particular word that they call that, like a covey of quail or a school of fish, or there's a name for it. And so the name for a group of rhinos, you can see there's another rhino way back here in the back. When you have more than one rhinos, they're called a crash. So it's a crash of rhinos.
That's so
awesome. The interesting thing about that is that a rhino, this is nerding out on this, but when Erwin's fault on writing this book and me reading it, but there's a sense of direction of a rhino when it can only see 30 feet in front of it. It can't see past 30 feet. So 31 feet has no clue what's there. And so this brings this aspect of faith. And so a rhino weighs about 3 to 4 metric ton. And when a rhino runs as fast as a squirrel, as Erwin says, 30 miles an hour, but who's going to get out of the way of a squirrel, right? So a rhino's a little different. At 3 to 4 metric tons, this rhino's coming in at you 30 miles an hour, and it can't stop. It's not going to be able to stop within that 30 feet, section. And so that rhino takes that speed plus the distance of where it can see, and it has confidence in on its head through the nose or the horn that whatever's at 31 feet better get out of the way. And so I took that years ago. I would show you my rhinoceros tattoo all over my. Of course. But anyway, I'm just joking. It's someday.
No, it's there.
But just being able to have that in faith and just saying, God, I don't know what's at 31 feet, but you do.
Yeah.
And so whatever's there, I'm going to put my faith in you, and I'm going to cast my cares on you, and I'm going to run as fast as I can and as hard as I can with my head down. I had a coach one time tell me in football, he said, Joel, I was a fullback, believe it or not. I was a fullback in high school. And he said, I want you to put your nose down. He said, I want you to lay your ears back and like a mule, and I want you just to go. And I want you to put your face mask in the number of that linebacker, whoever it is that I want you to. So I remember that as a boy, as a young man, putting my ears back, putting my helmet down, and putting my face mask right in the numbers of that linebacker, whoever it was, that it was my target. The same thing with faith. There's my dog barking. I don't know if you can hear that or not. But
you're good.
The same thing with faith is I just lay my ears back and I just move. I just go. And I don't know what's going to be at 31 feet. I have no clue. Mm-hmm. But I know that my faith in Jesus is going to sustain me. And so that's the story of the rhino.
I mean, guys, is that not epic? Do we all kind of want to be a rhino right now? A crash of rhinos?
Yeah.
That's wild, man.
Even at this point, this rhino over here, it's not moving forward with this rhino. But the potential of it, even if there's 2 rhinos in a watershed just grazing or whatever, they're still called a crash because of their potential. So when you get a group of rhinos together, people
that was a bar right there. That y'all
better look out.
Save that part right there
because they're coming. And wow. I mean, you can use that. You can use that as we ready, and you can sing that song. We're coming, because when you got a group of rhinos together, there's nothing that they can't get together and do, and that's just powerful to me. That's motivation to me.
Joel, that's so good, and that goes back to choosing your circle, who you're talking about, your people, your community. Yeah. Guys, that's everything we talk about here on this platform is as your life goes higher, your circle needs to get smaller. It needs to shrink. You need to find the right people around your life that are going to help elevate you, take you to places that you're wanting to go. You feel stuck, and sometimes you got to have those tough, we're talking about it, authentic conversations, having those authentic communications, and we believe conversation can change the world. Joe, I know that there's going to have to be a part 2 on this, guys. There's so much more I know that we could have gotten into, and we will get into. at some point. But
yeah,
any lasting parting words you want to spit something out? How can people find you? How can people connect to Joel Wingo?
Again, I'm a coach with Share the Struggle, sharethestruggle.org. If you would like any coaching sessions like that, I'm available and there, ready to take a call. We do a lot like this, just over Zoom is what we use it. And so if anybody needs help in that area, I'm there for you. Yeah, it's been a privilege, Taylor. I love talking to you. We do a lot of this, not enough, but we do a lot of talking off of this, and I'm really proud of you. Just watching you grow, proud of your wife Mallory and your kids, and Rochelle and I just really, when we think about you as a young man, what you've grown into, just makes me proud. I kind of feel like a proud daddy. I can really say that knowing you has been a privilege.
Wow. Well, cut off the camera so you guys don't see me cry. I'll do that later. But yeah, your labor was not in vain, Joel. Your labor was not in vain, man. The seeds of everything you planted endured and kept me through many times. And I was blessed to have people like you that God brought into my life to remind me again, identity, what we've talked about, who you are and who I'm supposed to be. But guys, we are wrapping up episode number 2 at the place with TM. Remember, there is space for you at the place. Joel, it was awesome, brother.
All right. God bless.